Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 75. If I'm not wrong, is this our Diamond Jubilee? Is that how it works over here? Well, you're English. Wait, hang on a second. Let's ask the English guy. Is the 75 the Diamond Jubilee? You better have an answer. If you don't,
I guess, Will, if you want it to be, why not?
Oh, yeah, I think you talk because what is 50th? 50th platinum?
Gold, platinum, diamond.
Platinum, yeah.
This is a rabbit hole.
Well, let me just say that just before we started recording, Will couldn't give a simple answer to a simple question. And then as soon as we get the tape rolling, Kyan can't give a simple answer to a simple question. So we're off to a rolling start. So episode 75, there's 52 weeks in a year. We're coming on our 2-year anniversary, which is on 20. I forget the actual date. Will, I forgot our anniversary. But it's soon. It's October sometime, right?
Or October. It's in the fall.
So we'll be around 80 episodes recorded at the 2-year anniversary. That's a lot of work for me.
It is a lot of work for you. And I'm grateful.
All right, good. So you got any banter? Did you bring anything to the show, or are you good?
I didn't think I had to bring stuff. I thought I was just supposed to show up. We've established that over the years, haven't we?
Who are these guys? I'm John Lane.
I am Will Barfield.
And we are
clearly a work in progress.
Clearly a work in progress. We have a special guest. Will, do your thing.
So, you know how we know the guest is special, Kyan? It's because the slide says so.
And what we know about slides?
Slides never lie, even if the information's wrong.
Nice. Yeah.
Because it's up there.
It's up
What
there.
are you going to do? It's too late. You can't change it.
Kyan, welcome to the U.S. Welcome to our pod. You're in the U.K. somewhere, but what part? Are you London town? Are you Manchester? Are you Liverpool? Where the hell are you?
I'm in London, and it's just taken a very cold turn for the worst weather-wise, but we're surviving.
Are you down in the tube?
Yeah, on the tube, on the bus, every mode of transport here. Biking it actually recently, this weekend, most recently.
So we're already talking about the weather, huh? We descended that. Here's your chance to describe yourself. I gave you a little lead in, and we're talking about the weather.
Johnny's trying to stay the show.
In 3, in 2. Kyan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm brilliant, thank you. Very, very glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be very interesting.
It certainly will be.
Tell us all about you.
Yeah, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm Kyan. I'm a business development manager / account executive from London. I also host my own podcast, one related to business development reps, people just getting into sales, and the other surrounding mental well-being in sales. So I like to do a lot of speaking, interactive things, and finding out things of what's really in the mind, effectively, what people really think, the thoughts behind the actions.
That sounds close to what we do, Will.
Yeah, let's just hope he's not better at it than us.
I think it's a pretty good chance he is. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good chance he is. I see Traino up there. Were you involved in Traino?
Yeah, so I was really close with the founders. Traino is the course that I went through to get my first tech job.
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that. That was a sad ending, and we won't bring the show down, but that was rough.
Yeah, no, it was. But there's a lot of talent that came through, and
I love the idea. Well, they were sort of like RevGen here in the States in that they train and foster SDRs, a little bit different model, but they focused on underserved communities in and around the UK. So people like who didn't go to uni and other stuff, but who are obviously talented, but just the recruiting process just tends to roll over the backgrounds, or maybe they have a foreign sounding name or something like that. And so they get dinged. These Traino would train them up, give them real experience so they could go into job interviews with actual experience. It was a cool concept, and I'm sorry to see it not reach its full potential. Anywho, we could do that one for an hour. We won't. Nice to see you. We get into the show as we always do. We're going to be talking about leadership traits under stress, and Will's going to tell us where that information comes from.
That information comes from the OAD personality assessment, which is a marvelous tool. Kyan, you experienced it. It's been a little while, but you went through it. Highly accurate, easy to administer. I'm sure you saw it. It's 2 pages on the web. Clicking some adjectives, off we go. That structure eliminates social desirability distortions to get at accuracy. And this tool is built to the standards of leading international psychology institutions and rating agencies. And you can see those logos there. That tells you that you can trust this data. It is scientifically validated. By John.
Will, do you have any thoughts on how the logos look?
Flawless and well-spaced.
Kyan, let me just talk to Kyan for a second, everybody. Maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, I don't really remember it. It still stings. Will finished his spiel like he just did with you. And then he said, and you'll notice those logos littered across the bottom of the slide. Brother, that hurt.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it too.
Good. I'm staying with the pregnant
every show since every show. So
now let me turn the worm back on me now. Last week, in an unexpected turn, you noticed that this slide was different.
Yes,
and I told you it wasn't, and I hammered you. I did to you what you typically do to me, not on purpose, but I hammered you, and you were 100% correct. Last week was the first time we used this particular version of the slide in the show book. So I am wrong. Oh, shit. I just blew in my blooper. Okay.
Kyan, you ever been on a podcast where it's like an old married couple like this? This is a new experience for you?
It's new.
All right.
It's good. All right.
So let's keep Kyan. Your job as the guest is to keep us on track. I thought we made that clear in the beginning. Okay. Those who watch us know that we always begin talking about the OAD Leadership Style Matrix. It is an imperfect, overly simplistic tool that, however, gives the general understanding of how the OAD data comes out. So in our world, people are generalists or specialists, and that is what we call substance, kind of who they are. And then they're either socially oriented or technically oriented, and that's their communication style or simply just style. So I'm a socially oriented generalist. I'm in the builder quadrant. I am what's called a negotiator. Will is a
technically oriented
take 2
generalist in the architect quadrant. I'm a developer who struggles to speak clearly, apparently.
Sometimes. Most of the time you're pretty clear. And then you are also a builder, so socially oriented generalist, builder quadrant. And I think you're an influencer. We'll find out in a second. So anyway, that's how we get this this heaping jalopy of a show rolling down the track. Okay. Oh, Pathfinder. That's right. You're a Pathfinder. Yeah. Totally right. So let me describe it. Let me break this down. So everyone's OAD assessment comes out like this. So Kyan is a socially oriented generalist. So he's in the builder quadrant. He's a Pathfinder. Like Will said earlier, slides don't lie. And then what we do is we look at these 4 traits: assertiveness, extroversion, patience, and detail orientation. And then we plot them out. Anything to the right, we read these right to left. Things that are more to the right are dominant. Things that are more to the left are subordinate. Your most dominant trait is assertiveness. Assertiveness means you're going to be flexible, good with delegation. What else does he like? I don't remember. And then can you tell I do this for a living? And then your next most dominant trait is your extroversion. That's what gives you that sort of social, hey, let's start not one pod, but two pods. Let me get in around people. And then your two subordinate traits are patience and detail orientations. When we look at the P&A together like this is somebody who is very comfortable with change and also extremely impatient. You like things today better than tomorrow and yesterday better than today. Let's get with it, people. You're also comfortable with change, right? Both of these things. And then we look at your P, your D, and your A together. This is what makes you a generalist. And this is almost like mine. If you're like me, you really are going to struggle with following up things and getting the right information. Like don't paste the wrong client's information into the other client's email and all that kind of stuff. But you know that about yourself. So you have built systems and processes so that your natural lower detail orientation does not get in the way of your success. How does that sound like you?
Very much, especially the impatience hugely applies. But I think perhaps it can be a positive and a negative at the same time.
Everything is both, brother. Everything is both, right?
Hey, John, before we leave,
Yeah.
Is it unusual for a builder profile for the A to be ahead of the E? Don't builders typically lead with extroversion?
It depends. No, it's a good question, but no. As long as the A is greater than the D and the E is greater than the D, that's what puts you in the upper right. Mine are stacked on top of each other on the 8 mark, and my P is sort of in the middle. That's why I'm a negotiator and not a pathfinder. Interesting thing about pathfinders is that even though it doesn't show here in the graph, this is why I say the leadership style matrix is a good simplistic view, is that pathfinders tend to be more technically oriented than other builders. And that's just the way the profile reads. We don't get into the full profile, but good question.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right. So now we're going to get into the good stuff. I'm going to flip out 3 superpowers, and we'll maybe ask a couple of questions, and then we'll go to kryptonite, and then we'll get into the good stuff.
Yeah. So, Kyan, thank you for joining us today, and we're going to get into the kind of Q&A interview live section here. Superpowers, these are system generated with some customization from John, but as you look at those bullets, is there one of those that really speaks to you as a spot on fit, or you recognize that in yourself, or others have pointed that out to you?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the second point about fast-paced environments, my main thing when it comes to efficiency is speed. I love when things are done as quick as possible. I love shortening processes, finding ways to make them better, shorter, more efficient. So, yeah, I think thriving in fast-paced environments is something that I've been told I do well in. And naturally gravitate towards those environments as well within my work life.
Great answer. John always comments about the difference between profiles and talks about how generalists, right, John, care that things get done. Specialists are more concerned with how things get done. So with you being in that generalist in the upper side of that quadrant map, it's definitely for you more about getting it done and then accomplishing it, and less fretting about all the things that had to be done and all the checklists that had to be taken care of, worrying about how it got done. So that's an interesting point there. It matches up.
Yeah, like it.
Kryptonite. So you mentioned positive and negative. Here it would be more about strengths and weaknesses, and when your leadership traits are under stress, when pressure's on, those characteristics about you that are superpowers can become inverted and be the shadow side, right, John?
That's right.
Kryptonite. Which one of these speaks to you most?
Again, the middle one for the kryptonite. So yeah, when it comes to making high risk decisions, I can tend to seek approval possibly a bit too much. I'm very risk averse at times, and it may not be the biggest risk, but I need to make sure I'm triple certain before I make a decision. So I tend to get as many opinions as I can from people that I trust, whether it's even a personal matter or work matter. I definitely see myself having done that various times, even recently.
Let me go
Quick
back to
question.
see something. 1 second, Will. I want
Yeah.
to. This is interesting. High E, extroversion, people person, social person. We don't really get into EC, but EC stands for emotional control. It is a measure or gives insight into a person's decision-making process. Somebody with a lower score makes their decisions with feeling and empathy. Somebody with a higher score is more logic-minded. When you see high E and high and low EC, you almost have occasions where people are talking their decision out loud. Someone like Will in the architect quadrant, he's churning, blank face. It's just going, right? Where you are, you're going to be talking out loud.
Yep.
You may not be asking people, like their opinion may not as matter much as the fact that you are beginning to say what you're thinking about and conversing, and you're in a social environment. So that comes up a lot.
Feeler.
Yeah. It also means you can get personal real quick. So sometimes TMI, but not always. Not our friend Kyan. Did you have more here, Will?
No, I think my question can be pulled into the next slide.
Oh, very nice. Hey, did you notice this? Do you see that ring that's on Will's forehead, or just the pointer?
There's a ring on my
Just
headphone.
You get a halo.
When you click it.
Halo. All right, Will, do your thing.
What were you doing there, John? It just
I was clicking the pointer button.
oh. So you see what I'm working with here?
I'm this many.
Now we're going to talk about the exercise of going through the assessment, the pod, looking at those bullet points, and thinking about all the things that you have going on professionally and personally. How can you take the information that we've just discussed and apply that to the way that you lead at work, the way you lead with the other things you do with podcasts, maybe other responsibilities that you have that outside of work or volunteer that require leadership from you. How does going through this analysis help, maybe reminded you of things or helped you focus? And then I've got a follow-up question based on the last slide once you kind of spout out.
You left something out of that question?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm not going to leave something out of the question I'm going to send you in a minute.
Well, I mean, but first of all, it was a brilliant experience. When I got my results, I think what tends to happen is you think of the most recent times that you've made some of the decisions based on the information that was given to me. I think moving forward, it's the awareness that it allows you to have, which is the most important thing. So, I can first of all align myself with environments or people that fit my style of working and the way that I lead, if I'm managing a team or something like that. That's most importantly, particularly with the podcast, looking for people to collaborate with and work with, and also at work. And I think also it allows me to, again, I don't want to use the word weaknesses because there are pros and cons for loads of things on the graph. There's no weaknesses, as you said, but it allows me to be aware of perhaps when I'm making, a decision that may not lead into one of my particular strengths, the reasons behind why I'm doing it. What's the why behind it? What's the why that's related to how I am? And I think it's just the awareness that it brings, which is the most important thing.
And I'm glad that you ended with that because it plays perfectly in the question I was going to ask. You pointed out bullet number 2 in the kryptonite on the last slide about high risk, and that you tend to talk out and openly seek input when you're making high risk decisions. And my question to you is going to be, does that happen more for you in a professional setting? Does that happen more for you in, kind of decisions that you're making personally? What does high risk mean to you in your world right now? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I think high risk for me means I just equate it to loss, and I know it's a cliche probably to say, but I hate losing. If you told me I can gain something, the fear of loss is always greater for me. And that plays in my mind. So that's what I usually equate to high risk. It could be a personal decision related to finances in my personal life, or a professional decision, perhaps chasing a deal and not wanting to, follow up too many times in fear of losing the relationship. So there are various examples, but I equate it to loss usually.
Wow.
That's a great answer. Fear of loss. That's tough. Yeah. And the recognition of that, right, is the good thing about this exercise, and the reinforcement.
I love that. Yeah, fear. And it's not always true for everybody. There's some people who fear of loss doesn't motivate, or doesn't bend their actions. But for others it does. And so knowing that about yourself allows you to create different work situations that allow you to be more comfortable in the type of decisions you have to make, right?
I wonder if that ties to his EC, John, and that loss. That is there some emotional pain that comes with that loss?
So you make decisions with. That's interesting. I'm gonna try to get this out. So if somebody where's the threshold with you? If somebody told you you've got a 90% chance of something happening that's positive that you want, but 10% you'd have some tough loss. Do you take that risk? 90-10, 80-20, 50-50? Because I think Will is onto something. I've never thought about it this way with that. So a person who's making decisions with empathy and feeling more than logic minded, that empathy and feeling about your loss may outweigh the logic of, 90-10. I'll take that bet all day. 1 out of 10 times it doesn't come through. But what do you think for you? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely take the bet, but I'll be thinking about mitigating the loss, if that makes sense. I think even if it comes down to something as work-related, like prospecting or hitting metrics to try and create as many opportunities as you can in the day.
Yeah.
I don't always see it as I need to create X amount of opportunities to gain something. Sometimes I see it as perhaps I'm not motivated today. If I don't do this, I may not have enough pipeline for the future. So that fear of loss motivates me in that example.
Super interesting. So it's not so much up the leaderboard, it's like avoid the bottom.
That's a very good point, but my fear would be not to be at the top of the leaderboard, if that makes sense.
Okay, I got it.
I'm going to ask one more question. Then
go, brother. We got all day.
So when you're thinking about these situations and that loss risk is out there, and you make the decision to go ahead, right? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Do you find yourself starting to experience the loss ahead of time so you can begin coping with that fact that it might happen so it doesn't sting as much when it does happen? Do you start coping ahead, or do you just think about the positive and then deal with it when it gets there?
That is a brilliant question. For me, I think there is a lot of rumination, thinking about the loss and the win, but perhaps the emotions of the loss are the most prominent.
Yep. That's what I figured. You start feeling it before it gets there, so it doesn't hurt as much when it happens. Like, this is what it's going to feel like. Oh, let me start coping with that. Yep.
Let me ask one other question before we go on. Are you doing, like your background was sales, BDR, et cetera, are you doing sales any longer, or are you doing sales in support of your own business?
No, so I'm doing sales for a company, but when it comes to sort of podcasting and speaking,
Yeah,
it's kind of creating your own sales for those products as well.
got it. But you're still a professional salesperson.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
correct.
we're gonna talk offline. Guess what, folks? Who's next? Now,
Oh
Kyan,
yeah,
we've
Kyan, you got
given
anybody
you,
you could suggest? Anyone you know in your network that you think
yeah,
would enjoy this experience?
but we'll set this up.
Yeah.
He's a who's next, right?
He is a Who's Next from Galen Germain.
Correct. So you got to continue the tree.
Yeah. I definitely want to recommend my good friend Mafalda. She does a lot. She coaches, she runs revenue teams. She's a very interesting character as well.
Cool.
So I personally want to see how
Yeah.
she's and hear her answers as well.
Is she in the States or where you are?
She is in Germany as it stands.
Oh, cool. All right. When we're end, we'll have a little bit of how to do the follow up. So thank you for that. Cannot wait to meet her. All right. Kyan, you've been on our list literally forever. We had to do a scrub once, and so we missed you. But thank you for being on.
Yeah,
love
great
your
show.
insights. I love that you listen to what we have to say. Will and I don't get a lot of that in our home lives, so getting that on the pod is. Woo! Thank goodness.
We'll hear about that one.
Amy stopped watching. I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are a work in progress. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Kyan. It's a blast.
Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.